You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm Dan Robertson, your host for today's episode, joined by John Townley and Ashley Priest, who've probably had about 4 hours sleep between them after a late night down at Craven Cottage, obviously for the reasons that Steven Gerrard was sacked. It was a very busy night from a work perspective. Gents, John, I'll come to you first. How are you feeling? How much sleep did you get? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, got into bed about 3:30, but luckily I'm not working today. So I've just only jumped on the pod, so to be fair...
Don't rub it in, John. Don't rub it in, John.
I think Ash is out at work.
If
Man in the live.
How much sleep? And you've been working today as well?
Was that so, Dan?
I said for you, Ash, how much sleep for you? And you've been working today as well?
3 hours tops. 3 hours tops. Yeah, I was going to log off at 4. Then you've come on. Can you do a podcast with me, Ash? Oh, go on, okay, go on then.
Sorry, mate.
Anything else you want from me? Bloody hell. But
orders from above, mate. Apologies. Need as many viewpoints as possible, and obviously me and Matt did the episode last night, so I don't want to kind of repeat myself too much because we talked about it. I talked about Gerrard out for an hour last night, and then the announcement dropped, and we reacted to that live, which was a good episode. If you want to go and see what me and Matt thought about it, you can go back and find that. Before we get on to Gerrard out specifically, let's rewind a little bit and talk not about the game in terms of the performance, because it's largely irrelevant, but just your day yesterday and what it was like. I'll go with you first, John. You've not been to many games as a duo. This is one of the few this season where you've gone together and you're working it together. What was the kind of mood travelling down there when you saw team news and that kind of thing? Did you think it would be as bad as it went on to be?
No, not in the manner of what happened. I think everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. And it was an embarrassment in terms of the game itself. Going into the game, I think, me and Ash were both saying, obviously, it's a massive game. Gerrard's under no illusion before the match. Almost every pre-match game for the last few weeks, the next game has almost been a must-win in a game to, find that magic moment, as he kept saying, and, to finally get those 3 points that could then push us on a little bit, but it didn't come. I think the way that we capitulated, the way that we played, the way we got outplayed by a Fulham team that is basically a championship team apart from Palinia. No disrespect for Fulham because they were very good in the championship last year, but we were completely outscored. It was quite something, to be honest, especially from the view that you got from the press box as well during the game. You could see everything.
Good view.
But shambolic really. As I say, go in there, not necessarily optimistic, but you thought, well, maybe Villa can nick a result and then go into Brentford. That's not, again, we're just papering over the cracks there, aren't we? So it wouldn't have been a result to kick on, a surge up the league, in my opinion. I think sacking Gerrard was the right decision, of course. But yeah, there was no optimism, and coming out after, obviously, it was blatantly obvious that was a sacking was going to happen either on the night or in the morning. So I think it's sort of full focus to what happens next, what's just happened in the last 10, 11 games at the start of the season. We can't let that sort of disrupt what's going to happen from now on. Although, I don't know, I kind of question where are the players at now. A lot of those players have, come because of Gerrard. A lot of those players, not necessarily been scarred at the start of the season, but there's just watching that Fulham game, there's much more problems that I think we have now rather than before.
Yeah, and changing the manager doesn't automatically fix all those things because there's a lot of issues with the players and the system and stuff as well, which we'll get onto in a sec. Ash, from your perspective, again, we've spoken a few times over the last few weeks about this kind of knife-edge feeling of it flip-flops one way or the other. If we'd have drawn or won last night, we're kind of in this limbo of, okay, well, he's got Brentford now and we'll see what happens. And every defeat brings that kind of feeling of, okay, is this the game where he finally loses his job? Could you sense that in the stadium last night as well from the off?
Yeah, he was just swirling around the plug hole, wasn't he? And after that, he went, didn't he? Pretty brutal. Getting the statement 11:15. Me and John were on the tube back at the time. It was just typical timing, wasn't it, John? Villa didn't hang around. A few colleagues that said today they should have been a bit classier with it. They should have done it this morning, but no. Nassef was angry last night. We spoke to some punters, didn't we, John? Who were in the corporate alongside Nassef and Christian and Johan, and they told us everything what happened in there, and Nassef storming off and not happy, given what he's seen, what we've seen, what the away fans seen. And when the away fans are singing that as well, get out of our club, it's just not nice, really. And Gerrard avoided him at the end. He arched round on purpose to miss the away end. Didn't acknowledge him at all. And he come in afterwards. I think before he spoke to us, John, I think he knew then. I think he knew just before then And he sat there, pretty emotionless. And I think he knew what was coming, and like I say, we've been swirling around the plug hole for a long time now. I've had to try and be balanced with my views, because I speak to him weekly and really wanting to turn things round. Never going to happen. I think he was out of his depth. I really do. I'll go back to the appointment 11 months ago. Wrong call. And the experiments, the Christian Perslow, and he's backfired. Christian done his statement this morning. We haven't seen the continuous improvement he promised. And it's a bad appointment, and it's on Christian's shoulders. He was Gerrard's man. He's his man. And it hasn't happened. So, it's a big rebuild now for Nassef and Wes. And see how we go from here. It's back to the drawing board.
It's quite sorry, go on, John. Carry on.
I was just on the reaction that said me and Ash speaking to a couple of people after the game, and the reaction and whatnot that we found out from Nassef. You must wonder, or we were saying at the time, that wasn't a Nassef Sawiris being shocked at the result or anything. That was Sawiris just being, furious at what's just happened. But you kind of question that's been coming for weeks now. So I don't think he was necessarily furious at that particular result. I wonder if that's a build-up of maybe we're speaking to other managers in the background or whatever it may have been, and then we put out that performance. It's hardly a sort of glowing representation of what those players are capable of. So quite possibly he was watching that thinking, no one's, we're a laughing stock really at this point.
It was.
Cottage, newly promoted team, and we don't lay a glove and get completely outclassed on the pitch. So I wonder if Sawiris was more furious at that rather than actual result, because he left, straight after Douglas Luiz appeared to headbutt Mitrovic. So he'd seen enough then. The writing was on the wall before the game really won it, I think. We were going to win those two games, and clearly, again, being completely done by Fulham. We'd probably get done by Brentford as well if Gerrard stayed in post. So that's where I think that's really almost the main take for me out of the game, because there's nothing you can really take from it apart from the players clearly not showing up either. But now that Gerrard's gone, it's almost a clean slate in terms of what happens on the pitch. But in the boardroom, there's questions there, that are going to continue.
With Sawiris being frustrated and furious, the word that you two have used, there's obviously a couple of them. There's Edens and Sawiris, isn't there? There's two people that are co-owners there. You've got Perzo that's involved in decision-making as well. Pure speculation here. Let's just say, for example, Sawiris wants to get rid of him after Nottingham Forest, but he's convinced to go, you know what, give him a couple more games. And he then turns up to Fulham and then goes, oh my God, that's what I've stuck around for. I've waited around for a 3-0.
That's the vibe, isn't it?
I wanted to get rid of him 3 weeks ago, but I was persuaded by Edens or Perslow or whoever else is involved to give him a bit of a chance and go, Fulham and Brentford is like a good barometer. Let's see where we are there. And he turns up to Fulham and sees us get pummeled by a promoted side and thinks, what the hell? I almost swore then. This is what the hell? What's all this about? So that's why I'm furious. I'm walking out. I'm making the call right now. We need to make this decision.
And I did.
And I did. What did you think about this statement you said there, Ash, about potentially other colleagues saying about it maybe not kind of classy from Villa to do it on the night of the game, and then Gerrard's still got to travel back with the coach and stuff? For me, I'm not really that bothered, to be honest.
You sacked,
isn't it?
I don't get it. I don't get the stuff about the team bus either. Gerrard's car's probably at Bodymore. It's a big difference. It's a big deal.
Well, he also going to walk back from Fulham.
I know. You're stranded, can you?
Yeah, I don't get that. And he would have been amicable. I think they had a meeting when they got back to Bodymore last night quickly, and they said the goodbyes there. Bit of confusion with the squad as to who will be leading Villa going into the Brentford game. That was ironed out this morning with it being Aaron Danks. He was called in last night to lead the team, and Gerrard's backroom staff have all left as well. Five have got the sack with him. McAllister, Culshaw, Milsom, and people like that. So it's back to the cluster who are around Dean Smith. So we're back to square one again, and we've got to get this appointment right. Otherwise, relegation battle surely, given what we've seen. So big few weeks for the ownership now. They've got to get this one right for sure.
We'll come back to Neil Critch in a sec. I just want to go back to the initial kind of news last night. It was kind of surreal for us doing the podcast straight after full time because we didn't really see Gerrard on Amazon Prime or anything because we were already live chatting to people. So people are filtering through in the comments saying Gerrard looks like a defeated man in his interview and he looks like he knows time's up. And Ash, you tweeted something like, Gerrard's press conference lasted 4 minutes and there was no questions about Brentford, which I kind of took as there's no point asking about Brentford because he knows he's not going to be there for the Brentford game. So we were kind of like live reacting to the news as it felt through last night. And then obviously eventually the club statement dropped just as we were about to finish. And that kind of gave us a nice bow on the end of the show to go, right, it's done now, wipe our hands of it, let's move forward. And was obviously we were speculating last night about who would take charge for Sunday. What happens next? Is it Neil Critchley in an interim manager role for the next 6 weeks, maybe till the World Cup or whatever? Is that the right decision for Critchley to go as well? Because penny for his thoughts, to leave Blackpool as the number one as the manager, to come to Villa as assistant, and then you get sacked 2 months later, and you don't even get a chance to kind of take over as the caretaker either. That's something going, isn't it, from Critchley?
Didn't bring much, really. Didn't bring much to the table. Worked hard behind the scenes to get that. Started off pretty badly, not going to Australia for me. That was pretty basic, really. Didn't get to go on the pre-season tour. You're off to a bad start then. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know too much about his role behind the scenes. It was a big coup at the sign, wasn't it? Villa acting quickly. Felt like it. Villa acting quickly after Beale left for QPR. I think they spent a couple of million on getting Critchley out of Blackpool. Mm-hmm. So they acted quickly. They went for it. Chucked the money at it to get a new assistant in. And yeah, I don't know. He come across as a bit of a yes man to me. Wasn't out there much barking orders. Same with McAllister. A lot of them last night just sat there on the bench. Just sat there.
There's actually a lot of pictures in our photo system of the bench of them all just sat in a row, kind of pulled over, speaking to each other. When you think, we're in a hole here. Like, we can't affect things as fans, as supporters. No. I mean, the away fans last night on TV anyway sounded really good, even when it's the anti-Gerrard stuff, and then they kind of follow it up with a Villa till I die or something and back the club if they're not particularly backing the manager. They can't do anything about it, and you look to the dugout and think, you guys can make a change. And we were talking with the game specifically, even just Cash as the half-time substitution, even that wasn't quite enough. Like, it's the first time I think we've seen a half-time sub from Gerrard, but you still looked at that and thought, well, that's not going to fix the problem here. So I think even just as something as simple as, and it's probably nothing really, but looking to your dugout and seeing all your coaches sat there dumbfounded and not knowing what to do, it's not a great look, is it, John?
No, it's what me and Ash were saying from the first whistle of the second half. It's 45 minutes to save his job if he's even allowed that. And yeah, they didn't get out of, or at least Gerrard didn't get out of his seat once. I think at the start of the game, he applauded the fans coming to the bench. It's obviously a long way to go from the away bench. But no, in the second half, nothing. There was no enthusiasm, no energy. It was mainly on the pitch that the players tried to sort of cajole each other. I think there was a huddle in the before the first half. Martinez sort of led that. McGinn came in late because he was doing the coin toss. And then when we considered the first goal, it was Ollie Watkins kind of trying to rally everyone around. There was nothing really from Gerrard from the sides, and you kind of just got that vibe of the players know what to come in. Gerrard said in his presser as well, as a player, everyone knows the pressure that the manager's on. I think Constance just done an interview and hardly come across as shocked himself. No, there was nothing from Gerrard on the side of the pitch, but there was just an awful sense of inevitability ever since Bournemouth for me. And I know that sounds drastic, but I remember writing a piece straight after that saying every question that we had at the end of last season is still there. And I don't want to go too much into the pre-season because that's going way back. But those problems were never fixed. All those questions remained, and they remained up until now. And after every game, there was just more problems. Mm-hmm. And Fulham, it all just came to a head. Everything went wrong. And yeah, it's where Villa go from here now for me. There was nothing from Gerrard on the sides, and I think he knew it. He didn't want to, as Ash said, he didn't want to get involved with the fans afterwards. And to be honest, because he's never really done that after games anyway. And I know he's got a bit of criticism. So he was never going to do that on a night like that. He knew his job was over, was done as soon as the game finished, probably. And then coming to the press conference afterwards, as Ash said, he was probably told before then. And yeah, he obviously looked defeated because he was. And yeah, lasted about 4 minutes. I think we all know by then that it was done, and the statement was going to either drop on the night or in the morning. And yeah, we had it at, what was it, about 2 hours after full time?
Yeah, 11:15, the statement came through. Yeah, I mean, us three did the podcast after Bournemouth on the first day, didn't we? And I was angry after that first game. I said Gerrard's on thin ice, and he was never going to get sacked after the first game week. But with hindsight, the ruthless decision would have been to sack him in the summer, to be honest. Because we've wasted the first 10 games of this season and now we're in a relegation battle. I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, but the back end of last season was drab and abject anyway. So, the only
thing in the summer was, and I was very sort of open for Gerrard to have that pre-season, to have that summer, because we were all saying you can't just chop and change managers after going on a bit of a poor run of form. But understandably, there was loads of questions that had to be answered. But you were willing to give him that time. If it was a full pre-season, and don't think due to COVID, due to other things and World Cups and Euros, we haven't had that proper full season, that extended run until this summer. And we got it, and we stayed unbeaten, didn't we? But in every game, there was no style of play. There was no experiments. It was just the same sort of rigid formations and see what we can do. And yeah, first 11 games of the season, everything has just come out, and we've gone backwards, haven't we? Inside 6 months?
Yeah, a mess. It's a mess.
What have you made of Gerrard, the person and the guy to deal with Ash? Because obviously you're the one that's speaking to him every week, and you get, every journalist gets a limited time with the manager, maybe get half an hour a week or something if you're lucky, to have a chat, maybe some bits off the record or whatever. I was saying last night, like, we almost were celebrating when the club statement dropped through last night, and it's like, well, this guy's lost his job. It's a serious thing. Like, we don't want to kind of be happy about that, but he's a human being at the end of the day. And I say, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but it's just not worked at Villa. And he could go on to be a top coach somewhere else. And we look back and go, gosh, when he was manager of Aston Villa, look at him now. But it was never going to work for us. What has it been like to deal with? Has he been okay? Has he been a nice guy? Is it obviously the Cameron Archer stuff, which is probably what you're associated with now at the kind of end of his reign of friend of the family job. What was he actually like to deal with every week for the last 12 months or so? Absolute
pleasure. Great bloke. I felt sorry for him yesterday. I really did. I felt him really hurting there. He just sat literally yards to me. His head was down. He never is down. Yeah, I felt really sorry for him. Wanted him to do well. He meant well. Wrong fit. Didn't warm to the fans. He wanted to prove the fans wrong. Where he should have gone the other way. And yeah, I think the chance in the away end hurt him as well. So he didn't want to acknowledge that. And yeah. It all ended pretty sadly, really. It was bad how it ended. But great bloke. I really liked him, Dan. I really did. I thought he meant well. Give us loads of good answers, explained things, went into detail. Wore his heart on his sleeve, very honest, too honest at times. What you see is what you get. No, he wasn't an actor. He wouldn't lie to you. He'd tell you straight. And I really liked him as well. Yeah, really liked him, and sad to see him go. Yeah.
Same for you, John. I know you've only had a couple of presses there, but same vibe for me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely echo all of that. Every time you come into a press conference, you almost feel like, okay, the manager could have a right to bite our heads off because of how all they're real. But you walk in and he's always saying, "Oh, hello, how are you?" He knows people by their names. He's a complete professional, and he treats all the media with complete respect. Honesty as well. Nothing's sort of off the record. It will never sort of lie or sort of hide something, which again, managers, they're entitled to do that. But every question comes with an answer. So yeah, as a media and professional point of view, you'll miss that. We'll miss that side because it was always good value. But if we're talking about football, then he's lost his job for a reason, and that's a massive shame for him. But no, completely echo what Ash has said. He's been a full credit to himself in terms of how he's dealt with the media, with the written press broadcast, and I'm sure he's really good with everyone else inside the club as well. For a player that's captain England, captain Liverpool, done all of that, he never sort of saw himself as above anyone else. Is the impression I got. So no, I wish him best, and I'm sure we all do in terms of a professional point of view. And what I would say is, he never dug out the fans as well. I know the fans.
Yeah, we said that the other day.
Yeah, didn't obviously quite take to him, and that's fine. But again, if that's a different manager, they are gonna go after the fans. They are gonna say something, and he always, even in Fulham, when he was probably knew he was sacked, he could have easily have backtracked to the fans then and said, "Oh, well, they could have supported better" or whatever. He didn't. I forgot what he said, to be fair, Ash, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, they're entitled to do that, and I understand it." And that's probably after his number's been sacked as well. So you can sort of hold his head up high, sort of thing, and know that he's treated everyone with the respect that that you want in the sort of environment that we're working in.
I'm semi-interested to see what he does next. Does he take some time out? Does he do a bit of media work, or does he take a job somewhere else? Semi-interesting, but not enough to talk about it for any further than that, because I don't really care. Again, back to the statement last night, very different to Dean Smith's one. I know time is probably a factor here because it was done, an hour after the game or whatever, rather than the day after Smith was sacked, wasn't he? I think after Southampton.
Sunday lunchtime. Friday was Southampton.
That's it. It was a Friday, wasn't it? Yeah, of course,
Friday,
yeah.
and then they must have sat on it on the Saturday, and then Sunday got called in. Sunday morning, he got called into the training ground. And
a bigger statement, more to talk about because he's got promotion and stuff. More of a connection there.
I don't know. Video to it as well.
Well, obviously, from a media point of view, none of that would have had time for last night, and obviously they're not going to follow it up with anything today because it's done now. But it was a very short statement. A club spokesman says, "Thanks for that. See you later," basically. But I thought it was interesting, again, or semi-interesting, that the Dean Smith statement was Christian Perzo says this, that, and that, whereas this one was a club spokesman. Now, again, who that is, we don't know. I assume you two don't know. But again, last night it was all like, this is Perzo's fault. He should take blame for that. He should take accountability. And Perzo's since kind of spoken about it and said what he said about Dean Smith, really, about the continuous improvement. But from the fan perspective of it, and I know you two are kind of not have to be careful, but the balance of being in the club to go and interview guys and stuff, interview managers. The fan side of it is saying, well, Christian Perzo's at fault here. This was his man. He went heavy on, and it's not worked. So Christian Perzo does have to take some blame here and potentially some accountability. Is that something you agree with, or has Perzo done a good enough job in his time at Villa that he's allowed to have got this one wrong? And as long as he gets the next one right, we'll all kind of forget the Steven Gerrard era.
I think someone mentioned in the comments, to be fair, you can't, this is obviously the appointment's gone sour. It was a bad appointment, and Gerrard will go down as, in terms of the stats, possibly one of the worst managers we've had in the Premier League. And I always go back to when, if there was a job interview or whatever it was, and Gerrard said, I'm taking Mick Beale with me, and he's going to be basically my right-hand man. He's the kind of brains behind it all. But he also wants to pursue a career in management himself. That could happen at any point, and we still say, yes, that's fine. I think at that point, surely alarm bells are ringing, thinking this could easily happen in the next few months. And as so it proved. And so I mentioned the comments then about the recruitment pre-Gerrard as well. Wendy, Bailey, and Danny Ings, all those players. We've been over that topic before, but we've hardly been a glowing success before Gerrard as well. It's not just one mistake. There's a few. In terms of Perzo himself, I think we need to certainly balance that with everything that he's doing right for the club in terms of the commercial, the stadium. We, as Villa supporters and people who cover Villa, we've seen say much worse. We've seen real hard times, and the Boardroom not particularly doing great things. And Perzo he is moving the club forward in that respect. If you're talking football decisions, you can scrutinise those, of course you can, and we don't know if he's making all of those decisions. But from now on, I think that there really needs to be a sort of a rethink in terms of how are we doing that? What's the structure? Because all the top managers that we're trying to attract, they're going to want to know who are they working under, what control do they have, and what decisions are going to be made when sort of the going gets tough and it comes to the summer window, the January window, and they want a couple of players. Are we going to get them over the line? Because the likes of Basuma didn't happen, Ward-Prowse didn't happen. All those are the players that we focused on. Smith Rowe as well, probably wasted a lot of time there. And instead bought players who are almost just as expensive and haven't worked. So, questions need to be asked, of course they do, because Villa are sitting above the relegation zone on goals scored after 11 games in a season which we're probably supposed to be getting top 8. So it's a massive mess. And that's partly Gerrard and partly the players, but it stretches throughout the club really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Perzo, I mean, we've said before, be in charge of the stadium redevelopment and the new badge and getting Nike on the shirt or whatever, but do we trust him? Do I trust him as a fan, as my own personal opinion, to get the next managerial appointment right? I'm not massively convinced at this stage. I need to see what I've said before, proof on the pitch that the next manager does work before I say, you know what, Perzo got that spot on. In terms of the next manager, again, more speculation in the last 12 hours or so. The news from today, various different managers linked, various different managers asked about the job in press conferences ahead of the game. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp won't be our manager, but he was asked about Steven Gerrard. I think Thomas Frank's been asked about it. Another couple of names. I've been a little bit out of the loop today. Before we get into any specific names, because again, I'm not sure that's totally relevant just yet, what does the next manager need to do to, first of all, last more than 12 months? Or do they just have to see us to 15th this season? Would that be a good enough thing? Or would they also be reassessed in the summer? Like, I'll ask you both this, what does the next manager need to do to get more than a year in the job?
I think...
Go on, John.
Yeah, to be honest, it mirrors last season for me. I was writing a piece last night on the train back home, and I was finding myself just sort of writing everything that is now apparent in terms of we're 11 games in. I believe Smith was sacked after was it 11 games as well? I think it was.
Exactly the same, yeah.
almost like a mirror copy. And when we lost those 5 games, I think everyone was thinking, "Oh, do we have the players to even stay up? Or where are we?" That's exactly how I feel right now, to be honest. So that manager's going to come in, whoever it is, or it's a big name or a risky appointment. But then you have to give them a summer window. You have to give them a pre-season. The only difference is that we are going to have a different little mini pre-season, aren't we, in December? So they will probably get a bit more scrutiny after that, because they've got a prolonged period to, use the players, at least in training. But yeah, we're in exactly the same position as we were last year for me. And that manager isn't going to be sacked before the summer window unless obviously things go really bad. And they get the summer window, they get that big pre-season, and then we'll be, this time in 12 months, hopefully after 11 games, we'll be okay. But it's just sad to see how, as we were from Smith during that sort of COVID season, we were a couple of points away from 10th. That was then sort of had to carry on. Grealish leaves and everything else has happened up until now, and here we are. But yeah, we really do need to start moving forward, because if we don't, we're just going to stagnate. And if you stagnate, you're going to move backwards. And we know more than most fans of Premier League clubs what happens when it's sort of you have a couple of seasons of just sort of treading water. You can easily get caught into it, and at the moment, that's where we are. So it needs to change quickly.
Same question for you, Ash. What does the next guy need to do?
Yeah, I think we're in a bit of a relegation fight. Hello. Where was I? Totally threw me there, Dan.
Ask your missus, what does she think?
Oh, she hates football. She hates football.
Yes, same.
What do we need to do? It's a tough run of games coming up now, If Brentford come and beat us at home, the doom and gloom still there. We've got to go to Newcastle then. I went to Newcastle last year. It's pumping up there. They've got to batter us, and it doesn't bode well. So got to instill a bit of confidence. When they make that decision, I don't know. Danks will have the Sunday game. I think the managerial search will ramp up now. I think that they were the signed out candidates over the last few weeks, just in case it went Pete Tong, which it did. We've seen the reports today. Pochettino, Tuchel's not looking good on those ambitious kind of appointments that people are excited by. So they're going to have to think outside the box. The favourite at the moment is the sporting manager. Try and say his name, Ruben Amorim. So he's the odds-on favourite at the moment. So yeah, it points to they've got the appointment right, and what the new manager needs to reconnect the fan base. That'll be the first thing to do. And by doing that, you need to get results on the pitch. You need to win some football games. Instill that confidence, get the players believing in themselves again. And yeah, he's got a big job to do. It's a big old job to come in and lift the club. Gerrard managed it last year. He did. Started really well, but then tailed off big style, and it was found out in the end. So yeah, big old job on his hands. And yeah, this run of games now before the World Cup isn't pretty, Dan. We've got Man U as well, haven't we? Twice. And we're going out to Brighton before the break. So could quite easily be in the bottom 3 when the World Cup break comes around. We could.
Oh yeah, I won't be surprised at all. That wouldn't be a shock to me at least. The kind of mood amongst the fan base and the people watching is this kind of not Pochettino or nothing, but because that's the name, that's the one that's been linked. If it isn't him, again, obviously results on the pitch and performances will soon quash any kind of worries anyone's got if it's somebody that they didn't quite want at the start. But it's almost like if it isn't Pochettino now, I feel like people are going to be disappointed. Whereas, kind of the story last night is that SF and Wes are willing to pay, one of the highest wages to a manager in the Premier League to get this elite target. And we talked about it last night, this kind of ambitious move for a manager. If you just say, here's 10 million a year for a wage, you can spend 100 million, you can make final call on transfers. Like an ambitious, good coach would look at Villa and still think there's a project there to be had. But also maybe a smart coach might think, it's not gone well for very many Villa managers over the years. Like not many Villa managers leave Aston Villa and go on to do better things. I mean, Dean Smith's left us and he's doing well in the Championship to a degree. Beyond that, no one else has stepped up Aston.
We lost Dan there, John.
Yeah, I think he's out. I'll carry on from where it was. I think the point Dan was making in terms of those top candidates that obviously we've been linked with. If you step down from that, you've mentioned there the Amorim, Emery as well. But after them, if they're not accepting a job offer, then I'm not too sure where we're turning, because that band of managers beneath they're all of a sudden thinking, well, yes, it's a good project and yes, it's a big club to work out, but you didn't want me. You wanted these 5 managers before me. It's similar to the problem that Wolves have. And they're in a proper situation now where they're going to have to use their assistant manager up until, the academy manager up until 2023. That's a big problem. So if it's not a Pochettino, Tuchel, which isn't going to be Amorim, I know he said he's happy at Sporting, but what else is he going to say? He's not going to say he's leaving, is he? And then Emery, I'm not sure if he would be necessarily enticed by what we're trying to give him. He said no to Newcastle, so why would he say yes to us? I think Domenico Tedesco, the old Leipzig manager, his odds have fallen all of a sudden, and he seems that sort of sexy name that that would be linked with Sean Dyche. Is there seems to be no middle ground. It's either a top name or an elite coach or nothing. Or as I say, or nothing, or a manager that just isn't going to inspire the fan base / knows that they're not going to be number one candidate. So it's a really tricky position to be in. I think Ruben Amorim is probably the hot favourite, because if it's beneath that, I have no idea who it is. But by the way, I think he would be a brilliant appointment.
I don't know anything about him. I'll probably play the stupid card. I've never even heard of him before. I don't know whether that makes me an absolute mug. I've never even heard of his name before.
It's a very risky appointment in terms of, obviously, he's only managed in Portugal. He's a young coach. I watched it's like a 20-minute, 30-minute video on like a BT Sport Champions League magazine show or something. I don't know why I was watching it. But it kind of came across as if he sort of, I don't know, he's very sort of in terms of the man management. He galvanises the players. Obviously, he won Sporting the first league in like 19 years, which is a big feat considering Porto and Benfica, obviously the two big dogs in Portugal. So he got massive reputation, especially in Europe, but Premier League's a different kettle of fish, and I'm sure he'd be sort of linked with those jobs in terms of a Tottenham or whatever in the future. And for now, I think it would be a coup for us, but is it the right time? Are we in that position where we can risk that manager? I don't know. I think Nassef and the board will probably think that we are, but again, I just look at Fulham, I look where we are at the moment, and we're, are we ready to take that risk? I'm not sure. But if it isn't him, I have no idea where we're turning. No clue at all.
Would there be a possibility of like a Sean Dyche till the end of the season? Come in, steady the ship, get us out of trouble, and then we look for a more permanent fixture in the summer? Okay, I don't really like that though. I've suggested it, and I don't even like the suggestion myself.
I can't see that. I mean, maybe I can't see it.
No, fans wouldn't be inspired too much by that. Dyche should do it. Of course he would. Big job for him. You throw the carrot at him, finishing the top 10 will give you a long-term deal, but can't see that happening there at all.
No, me neither.
So, yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a candidate that stands out at the moment. I mean, Pochettino was the obvious one, and obviously shut us down. But Sean Dyche, there's limitations, obviously, because it's, as we've just mentioned, Thomas Frank.
I mean, Sean Dyche did a good job with Burnley with no budget whatsoever, and he did get them into Europe, didn't he, at one stage? So Sean Dyche with a better squad potentially could work, but again, it's not inspiring, is it? No one's going to go, oh my God, Sean Dyche, what a sexy appointment.
Not even that. I just think it works both ways. I don't know. I don't think it just means that if Sean Dyche was managing Man City, I don't think they'd win the league. If you kind of put it that way, I don't think it sort of is sort of linear like that. I just think every manager that at least on the odds that have been sort of named or rumoured, I think they've all got limitations, and we're not going to get a perfect candidate, of course we're not. But yeah, it's a tricky situation. It really is. I don't know where the club are going to turn. Again, Amorim seems like the favourite, and we'll see what happens there. But I don't know.
It'll become clearer next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would expect. I mean, me and Matt talked about this last night, so I'll repeat it myself for people that listened yesterday. For you to, I assume, didn't, because you've not really slept any yet. We said about like sacking him now probably brings the recruitment process quicker than they would like to have done. They probably wanted to do it in the World Cup break and have another month or so to get it sorted. But as now, it's all kind of accelerated and really quick. And it's like, do you just do a kind of half-arsed job of it and get somebody in before Newcastle because you worry that we just need somebody? Or do you sit down and go, right, Aaron Danks, you can have the next 3 or 4 games because we want to do this properly and make the right call and use that time wisely? But then you do worry where we might be in 3 or 4 games if we don't pick up the points we need, and if we're further cut off adrift towards the bottom end of the league table. That decision to bring in somebody in the World Cup break, the options become diminished anyway because you're in a worse off position than you are as of 21st of October. So it's a very difficult, awkward position for Villa to be in. But it's the lesser of two evils because Steven Gerrard was only taking us in one direction, so he had to go anyway.
The only issue that I have with that in terms of waiting out, sort of leaving the process and seeing what comes up, I don't think any new names are going to randomly appear, or there's not an infinite sort of list of people that we can go after. I look at the odds and I see about 3 names maybe that could take the role or that we would be interested in. And outside of that, I really don't know. Like, I know people have mentioned Brendan Rodgers. I don't think that will happen at all. Like, is it Leicester? I think they're doing okay in terms of they'll be all right. I think they're just on a poor start. I don't think he's the sort of person we go after. I think he probably needs a break. He's got a big buyout in terms of they have to sack it. Like, I can't see that. And everyone else is just, don't know. I think Amorim is the hot favourite. And after that, I know I keep saying it, but I just, no. Really don't.
I had a DM from a Portugal colleague. He said Bruno Lage is being considered. Bruno Lage, he's linked with Nasser Suarez. I know. With Jorge Mendes, there's a link there. He's being considered, but he's passed as a Wolves coach. He's against him, is what I've been told. So I can't see it happening, but he's been named. It's been thrown about, let's say. So, and these Portugal links with, like you say, with Ruben Amorim as well. There is links there with Nassef and Portuguese football, and Villa were meant to buy a Portuguese club, so that's where the links come from. And the sporting coach is hot favourite, and other than that, there's not, like I said, the pool's quite small, isn't it? Really, at the moment, no names jumping out at you at all, and it's not really like Villa, is it? Really?
There's a lot of comments come through there, be like, no, what a bad appointment that would be. So it's gone down like a ton of bricks. Do you reckon Michael Beale regrets his very public statement yesterday saying I'm staying at QPR? Because the Wolves job and the Villa job are very different. Wolves, I mean, we're in a mess, but Wolves, it's different. It's a different thing. He's obviously been at Villa already. Could have just slotted straight back in as a number 2. But now he's already kind of committed to not going to Wolves and staying to QPR. There's no way he can kind of double U-turn again and now come to Villa. Do you reckon if that statement doesn't come yesterday, he's now maybe thinking, if I'd just hung on at 12 hours, I might have got the Villa job?
I don't know. I think he's probably got a taste for the chaos and probably thinks he's better at QPR.
100%. 100%.
I can't see that happening at all. I don't want to keep it up. If they get promoted, fair play. That's a bigger achievement than coming to Villa and finishing mid-table.
Could be a future Villa manager. I want more of that out.
Yeah.
There was a bit of talk, I don't know where it came from, about Beale as the assistant manager being like quite harsh for an assistant manager and kind of trying to put his ideas away too strongly. And he thought, well, weird, because that's like an assistant manager that wants to become a manager and was basically manager anyway while Steven Gerrard was here. So he's gone off to cut his cloth and be like, okay, I'll take QPR up and show you what I've got. I could just say rejecting the Wolves job is one thing. Rejecting us would have been different, but he's never going to do a double U-turn on that statement yesterday. It's like an 8-minute video of him saying how much he wants to say there. So he's not going anywhere, but he was the favourite, wasn't he, this morning or late last night? So it's worth talking about from that perspective, but there's no way I believe that Beale will come back. But you do look at the names in that list of odds after the likes of Pochettino and Tuchel and think, well, if it's not one of them, because we can't persuade them, I'm not massively inspired by any of them. And I know you judge them on what they do once they're here and you get behind them when they are appointed. But if it was Bruno Lage, for example, I don't think that would go down very well.
Not at all, no.
To be fair, I think Ruben Amorim and Unai Emery are 2 strong candidates, and I do think both of them will be good coaches, really do. But apart from those 2, who could easily not turn up, I don't want to sound worried because that's very negative. But I'm sceptical. Whatever. That's probably just being, a Villa fan. So I don't want to. Let's try and be positive. Let's just move forward.
Just to end quickly, without like calling for a name or making a suggestion, what kind of attributes does the next guy need to have? I asked you earlier, what does he need to stay in a job? But does he need to play a certain brand of football? Does he need to get that connection with the fans back? Does he need to do, revive a certain player and get them playing well? What does the attributes of the next coach need to have?
I think it needs to be, it sounds very stupid. It needs to be a good coach for a start. I feel like those players haven't developed in terms of the last 12 months. They've almost just stagnated their whole careers. A lot of them, your Buendias, the main parts of the squad, they haven't had a good time under Gerrard. You need those players to now turn up and really sort of kick on with the Premier League careers. And I don't think people like Emery or Amorim would do that. They need to just, I think that in terms of the squad, it's a united bunch anyway. I don't see any bad eggs in there. There's leaders in there. I don't think we need a manager that's shouting from the hilltops, telling leading from experience or whatever that I feel like Gerrard would have been given. But we've been missing that sort of technical element that in the Premier League, like Frank and Graham Potter, they had that conversation on Amazon, didn't they? And it was really insightful in terms of how they see the game. And Frank was saying you can set up with like a system or formation, but it changes in game. It's so fluid. Like, I feel like that all probably just went over Gerrard's head, to be honest, like in terms of what we've seen on pitch. So those managers that are of the caliber that can really compete in the Premier League and go toe to toe with the top managers, instead of just doing a low block or, I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's just, we've kind of been scarred over the last 6 months of watching a brand of football that we don't really know what we're seeing. So a fixed identity and a coach that can really get the best out of the talented players that we do have. Emi Buendia's creativity, Bailey, what he was doing in the Bundesliga, he needs to try and replicate that. We know Watkins can score in the Premier League, Danny Ings can score, Cameron Archer. The positive is that we have a good squad. We know that. We just need this coach to, really bring the best out of them now.
Final question for you, Ash, so you can go and get some sleep. What kind of changes do you think we'll see against Brentford, whether in terms of personnel? Will there be this drastic change where we suddenly go, oh, okay, the handbrake's off. Aaron Danks has spotted this, and that, and he's really made a difference? Or will
go
it be
on,
more
Danks.
What do you think?
Why not? Yeah, why not? The group failed on Thursday last night. Why not? Douglas Luiz serving a 3-game ban.
Yeah,
so he'll be missing for a bit. So Dendoncker, I think, probably comes in for his first start, maybe. I think there'll be changes. I don't think we've seen Bednarek. I don't think that worked.
No.
For me. So I'll give some chances to lads who haven't been playing him, like Callum Chambers, chuck him in. Start Archer. Feel good factor from kickoff. He's charging down the ball for the first few minutes. The crowd are up. Come on then, we'll have a good go at these. I think if Archer comes into the starting 11, you've got a booster from the crowd straight away. He's a fan favourite. Buendia's. What does the future hold for your Sansons and your Nakambas and even Freddie Gilbert? Dare I say, what's the future hold? I mean, do they have a lifeline now? Quite possibly. Coutinho struggling to see his future without Gerrard, who backed him to the hilt and was probably too strong in his backing of him before, and that transfer's backfired. I don't think he's got it.
That felt like a no-brainer, didn't it, to sign Coutinho for 16, 17 million, and now you're looking at it going,
blew up, innit?
We're stuck with Philippe Coutinho now, who couldn't, if
he's
got this good connection with Gerrard, and like if he's the one to get it out of him, and Gerrard couldn't do it, you then worry that, well, if Gerrard couldn't get anything out of him, maybe no one can get anything out of him, and now we're stuck with him.
That's the managers on top of the managers to do list, really, to get the best out of Philippe Coutinho. Can he do it? Big ask. Trying to think who else can come back into the fold, really.
Chambers has been nowhere, has it? Yeah. No
Chambers. So I mean the squad's there. We need to get the best out of it now, and just why not go for it? And I'd start Archer. He'd be on my first name on the team sheet. And no, I don't know his family.
Score prediction very quickly, Ash.
Oh dear, give up now.
We've been terrible with score predictions. Obviously, no one got anywhere near right on Friday night. Thursday night.
I think I'm going to lose.
Oh,
Danks out.
Oh, imagine. I'll go 1-1.
1-1. Okay, good cop out answer in the end. John, quick score prediction for you as well.
2-1 Villa. Can we play a bit, with a bit more freedom? Let's, get the crowd behind us. It should be a good atmosphere. It almost feels like a clean slate.
It should, yeah. The weight's lifted. It'd be a better mood down there, 100%.
Yeah, it should, until Thomas Frank's knee slided in front of the whole end after 5 minutes when Argentina scored a penalty or something. Villa win anyway. How? Don't really care.
Come on.
Just something to cheer for once. Have a nice weekend. Ash, John, thank you very much for your time and your efforts over the last 12, 18 hours or so. Ash, get yourself some sleep because you've had a long, long day. John, you've had a day off, so get back to work, mate. Cheers, everyone, for tuning in. As always, over 850 people watching this podcast this afternoon, which is great numbers. If you want to catch up with Matt Kendrick's opinion, you can watch the podcast from last night. And we'll be back on Sunday evening, probably, for the post-Brentford podcast. If we can find the time to do it between us. If not, we'll have a catch-up Monday morning instead. So thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks, gents, for joining me, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.